How does what one learns as a child affect clutter in adulthood? What is emotional clutter and how does it affect us in our daily lives? Have you been holding on to something that has been passed down in your family from generation to generation that you don't like? Let's wrap up our month focusing on clearing clutter with Julie Coraccio podcast interviews.
Are you overwhelmed by clutter, looking to organize your life? Do you feel stuck and are ready for a change? Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., join award-winning professional organizer and coach Julie Coraccio on clearing the clutter inside and out as she supports you in navigating the waters of decluttering your life and getting organized. Julie thinks outside the box and examines clutter in all areas: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, and more. Ready to live a more joyful and fulfilling life?
This month focuses on interviews I've done on other podcasts. Sometimes it takes hearing something in a different way or by asking a different question for that aha moment. Have an aha moment from one of the interviews? I'd love to hear it. This was a really wonderful interview on moving mountains with Sasha Longhone. You can find her at sashatalks.com. She had done her homework and really asked a lot of great questions. The only edit I did make was deleting music as I didn't have permission to use. All of the opinions I expressed in this interview are mine and mine only.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Moving Mountains with Sasha. I'm your host, Sasha Lego. This evening, we have a very exciting guest with us. Meet Julie, an award-winning professional organizer and coach who takes a holistic view of clearing clutter and organizing. She's passionate about supporting people to release clutter from all areas of their lives: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic. And before I share too much, we will let Julie share the work that she does through reawakenyourbrilliance.com. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So when you pitched the idea, go on.
No, you can ask. I was just going to say what really excites me is, and I was very purposeful when naming my business, is when people clear clutter, they can create the life they choose, deserve, and desire, and they reawaken their brilliance, and they can share their gifts with their world. And I want to live in a world where everyone's happy and excited and sharing their gifts.
So when you think of the word clutter, what comes to mind?
To me, clutter is stuck, stagnant energy. It's anything that's preventing you from moving forward into your life.
Was there any event or experience that you went through that made you realize that you wanted to share your abilities to help other people organize their life?
Oh, I love that. The truth of the matter was I was working a job for a nonprofit. I worked in development for about 12 years, and what that means is helping raise funds for nonprofits. And the last job I was at was just crazy. It was the most dysfunctional job that I had ever been in. And I thought, well, I don't want to do this anymore, but what could I do? Where are my talents? Where are my gifts? What could I do to support people? And I came up with organizing. I've always been really organized. When my friends would be like, hey, you're kind of uptight, come help us get organized. And I began my business in 2009, and back then I called it Healing Through Organization because I really felt that it could help people heal. And what I found through the process was, and I still help people get organized, but clearing the clutter was the first essential step. And I saw that even if you didn't get organized, if you cleared clutter, that would have a bigger impact.
Oh, yes, I really believe that because when I meet people, some people, I guess, have very limited and contained emotional baggage. There's many different types of baggages. And because we do this as a living full-time, I was a little bit curious, where does your attention go when you meet a person? Let's say, hypothetically, you walk into their home or you see their desk or just how they shared their life stories. How do you sense that they have clutter?
Well, the physical clutter is obvious, and what I've been able to tune in more is I can tell is the clutter depression related, is it anxiety and overwhelm. The best way I can describe it is that it's just you can feel the energy. because if you do this enough, you get a sense of how it feels. And that's the best way. I know that might be difficult for people. When I talk about energetic clutter, the example that I like to use is if you've walked into a room after people have just had an intense argument, you can literally still feel that hanging in the air. So that's kind of how it is when I go into an environment. It just, there's a certain feel to it. And everyone is different. There are different reasons why people have clutter. It could be that they're afraid of success, or that they're afraid of failure, or they're very creative and think, oh my gosh, if I clear the clutter, then my creativity will disappear, which isn't the case, but it just really varies from person to person.
Putting aside the physical symptoms, what are some emotional and mental hurdles that your clients have to work through in order to release the clutter? Because you could point out what needs fixing or a little bit of modification in their life. Do you feel that they tackle more with the mental or the emotional aspect of letting go of clutter?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would say for sentimental reasons, or for emotional, sentimental items tend to be the biggest challenge. I think that clutter creates a lot of overwhelm, though, and so mental clutter needs to be released. And I found if you start to remove your physical clutter, it's going to affect your mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic clutter, and vice versa. If you start to work on the mental clutter, then that helps you in your physical environment. So one of the things a couple things that I've noticed with people is with the mental clutter, people won't live in the present moment. You know, clutter really keeps you stuck in the past. And so a lot of times people are in the past, or they're worried about the future, but they're not living in the present moment. And the present moment is your point of power to change, to create the life that you choose. An emotional clutter to me might be something like, do your emotions control you, or do you control your emotions? You know, for instance, do you fly off the handle very easily? Do you get angry? Are you extremely jealous? It's different things like that.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I was a little bit curious how you work with, how young are your clients?
Well, the youngest clients I've had, it's funny, I just saw my very first client ever this past weekend, and I'm trying to remember, her son would have been 5, it was probably 8 at the time. And then this past January, at the end of the month, I worked with a family, and their youngest was 6, and the 2 older children were 9 and 10. And I'm a firm believer of helping kids learn to clear clutter and be organized at a very young age, because I think that can only benefit them. If you don't learn these skills as a child, then in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, I've worked with older clients who, I'm thinking of one in particular, who's in her 50s, who has a basement full of her parents' stuff that hasn't been opened in the 20 years that they've died. And if you don't learn those skills, it's much harder later in life to do it. I'm not saying it can't be done. I believe you can always do whatever you set your mind to, but it's more of a challenge as we get set in our ways. So I think, you know, kids can learn really early on. We put our coat where it goes in its home. You know, when we're done with something, we say thank you and have gratitude for it. And if it needs to be let go, or if it needs to be recycled, or someone else can get better use in it, I think those are very important skills to learn early on.
Given that example where the boxes haven't been opened up in 20 years, it brings us to the idea of denial. So would you think in that example the client is just in denial of going through memory lane and taking care of what needs to be put away, what needs to be given away?
I don't necessarily. No, well, it could be, but I don't want to say that it's not that. I think a lot of times I've found, and I don't know if you found this in your work, sometimes people fear the emotions or what they think it can be, or they can't face it. Again, I think in my mind that's a little different than denial. And, you know, oh my gosh, I've lost my parents. They're not here anymore. And, you know, one thing that I share with my clients is, you know, when someone is deceased and moved on, they'd want you to be happy. And if you don't want what they've left you don't want their items, then release them, because they're not on the other side angry with you. They're at peace now. So release what doesn't serve you. It could be, it's just too overwhelming and too afraid of emotions. If people haven't gone through the process of grieving someone, that could be the reason why. And I found a lot of times, I think this is clearing clutter and getting organized can be very healing. And sometimes people are afraid that they just might be so overwhelmed by their emotions, they fear that more than the emotion itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, because there are many different emotions involved, and denial would be a little bit too obvious and it's not always denial. Having said that, when you work with clients, regardless of their age and their life experiences, how do you console them when they get a little bit too emotional of letting go? They know that they have to declutter their life, but great, how do you walk them through that bridge that it will be okay?
Well, there might be a couple things. And again, it's hard when I'm not in the moment with the client. It's much easier because I ask for guidance to trust my higher self to give the guidance that the people need. But it might be like, okay, let's stop for a moment and take a breath. Let's discuss what's coming up for you. How are you feeling? And then taking it through there. I believe we all know what's best for us, and we all have inner wisdom. And I see my role as supporting people and helping bring out their inner wisdom. I can't tell you what's best for you. You know what's best for you. But I see my skill set is supporting people and learning, okay, this is what's best for me. And, I've worked with people where memories of being abused have come up. I mean, there are reasons, clutter can serve, if we have a lot of clutter, as a barrier for protection. So it's very important to not be judgmental, to be prepared for that. Again, will do what I'm qualified for, but I always have a list of referrals if someone needs to go deeper and get support on that. But it might be breathing, checking in with the emotions, getting grounded. It could be a variety of things. And it's a process. Rome wasn't built in a day, and clutter wasn't created in a day. So it might take longer to release it. But my experience has been, when working with people, once you start the process, it becomes easier, and it's like building that muscle. And once you start it, you're able to continue and go further and release more.
Surrounded by clutter, tired of the stress it creates, ready to find peace of mind and reduce your anxiety? Our comprehensive How to Declutter Your Life course guides you step by step in how to clear clutter and simplify your life. Each section is 3 months: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and features manageable to-dos. A bonus month on clearing energetic clutter is also included. Choose either workbook or video course. How to Declutter Your Life is designed to build a strong foundation for releasing clutter and continued personal growth. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
I was going to say that all professionals have a few prerequisites for helping a client. What is the ideal client for you? What symptoms should the client have, or the needs that would make you say, okay, I could help this individual, but I cannot help this other person seeking my assistance?
I love that. Well, first of all, honestly, I check in with my guidance. Can I help this person? And what I do is I do a free 30-minute consultation, because I really have a good sense now just on talking to someone. Are we a good fit for one another? Because I think it's important to have a good, strong personality fit. I would not work with someone who is a hoarder, because I'm not qualified in my mind to work with someone like that. I think that they need specialized help. Now, people who have, I'm thinking of a client I'm working with now, she has what I would call 3 rooms where are her craft rooms. They're really full of clutter. Now, someone might walk in and say, oh, it's close to hoarding situation. It's not. Some things in her life have happened. She's become overwhelmed, because underneath that clutter, she's Martha Stewart organized. So just because of life circumstances, it's become that way. I get excited and think I'm a good fit for clients who are like, okay, I know I need to change my life. I'm ready to take that step and move forward to declutter my life. And most people make that connection between the physical and the mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, whatever part it is. They see that there's a connection with that.
Regarding hoarding, that was what I was a little bit curious of. When you hear about people hoarding or shows that they do on hoarding, I'm left speechless. So with hoarding, it would be considered more of a lifestyle, while you focus more on situational circumstances.
I wouldn't even, you know what, I wouldn't call, again, I'm not an expert, I wouldn't call hoarding a lifestyle. To me, it's more there are deep psychological issues going on that I would say are trauma-based. And so I think that you would need a support team. Again, you know, I take a very holistic approach to life, and I'm not a therapist, but I believe that, again, a skill set is listening and not being judgmental and supporting people and bringing out their wisdom. But with hoarding, you know, there are just so many different factors going on, and it would be a challenge for a hoarder to let go of something. It would be much more of a challenge for them than, say, your average person to release things. But I think a lot of times, you know, organizers work with psychologists or therapists to support the hoarder in releasing. And, you know, I'm not a fan of the shows just because I think if they support people, that's fine. But some people, clients, have no idea the time that it takes to, and not for a hoarder, like, oh, I didn't realize it would take this much time. You see in 48 minutes, this house that's completely stuffed to the gills, and in an hour it's gone and it looks great. And so they don't see the behind the scenes of teams working for a couple weeks behind the clock or around the clock. And so it gives this false misconception that it doesn't take time. And again, if you spend all these years collecting everything, it's going to take time to go through it and release it.
Other than organizing things, how do you teach individuals to, I would say, declutter their emotional and their mental baggage? Because we live in a world of all the technology, our inboxes are full, people are constantly texting, and people become so emotionally engaged in these messages and communications, and they're cluttering themselves even though they don't realize it. So do you work through those type of nuances as well?
Oh, absolutely. Again, it really is whatever the client needs, because I found is when we start to work with the physical clutter, other issues will come up, and people are very open and will share what's going on, and then we can address different things. So, for instance, with mental clutter, I'm a huge fan of meditation. I think everyone would benefit from that, but maybe meditation is not their cup of tea. So maybe we will work on breathing skills. And for emotional clutter, I'm a big fan of don't take anything personally. Remember that whatever someone does is about them, but how you respond is about you. So if someone says something on Facebook that really upsets you, say, oh my gosh, thank you. This is an opportunity for me to dig deeper and learn something about myself. Why is it that I'm so upset? Oh, maybe there's a wound here that needs to be healed. And I'm a huge advocate also of unplugging. We spend 24/7 our lives connected, and I don't think that's a good thing. Like, social media is wonderful because at the beginning it connects so many people. I've had good fortune of meeting people from all over the world via social media that I wouldn't have had an opportunity otherwise. But, you know, here in the U.S., it's political season and people get upset and get nasty and all that. You have the choice to step away from that. And I advocate people doing that. You know what? Get off Facebook for 30 days. It won't kill you, and see how you feel. I don't watch the news anymore. I can't tell you the last time that I watched the news. And I used to watch the news on a regular basis, and it upset me too much, and it bothered me too much. I'm like, okay, I'm going to unplug from that. So, again, it's very individualized, but there are different things that we can do to address whatever mental or emotional clutter is going on.
Along your journey as you work with clients, and they come to understand how the physical and the mental clutter has an impact on them, how do you introduce them to spirituality if they don't have any roots in spirituality, or it's a foreign concept to them?
Well, I always try to speak in whatever language people feel comfortable with. You know, majority of my clients are spiritual. I think that they would, if they wouldn't call themselves religious, they would call themselves spiritual. But here's an example of what I would consider spiritual clutter. And again, this is my categorization. Someone might say, oh, that's emotional clutter. But for instance, do you compare yourself? To me, that's spiritual clutter. If you're always comparing yourself to others, you are perfect the way you are. It doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement and you can be a better person. But if you're wasting all your time, oh, I'm heavier than that woman, and I'm not as pretty as that woman, I'm not as smart as that man, then you spin your wheels, you waste you create spiritual clutter on all that junk when you could be using that time to improve yourself. and learn more about yourself. So that's an example of what I consider spiritual clutter. Or finding your passion. Do you know what it is that brings you happiness and joy? If not, what spiritual clutter can we release to figure out what your passion is?
So speaking of spirituality, I wanted to talk about a little bit about energy. Do you explain people what exactly energy is and how each thing that they hold on to, whether it's a thought or a thing, it just resonates? Good thoughts, negative thoughts, it just starts building up a mountain of something, and they don't want a mountain of clutter.
Yeah, so, I will explain it in different terms. Now, I believe everything is energy, and I think probably it's been proven by physics. But, you have to meet people from where they are. And I think the more they do this work, they can understand it. Because, what I'll say to someone is, get in a room that's really cluttered. How does that feel? Or maybe you have a colleague that's got a really cluttered office. Go in that and then go to another room that's clear and clean. You can literally feel the difference in that. And that's just, or other people's energy. I'm a huge fan of energetic clutter. If people might be saying, hey, how are you? But the energy behind their words isn't kindness. It's like throwing darts at you. So being aware of that and trusting your instinct on whatever you're feeling. And, some people are empaths who feel it. And I have a friend that, gets really sick and can do that if she's around someone that's ill, that really pick up other people's energy. But those are just, for me, a few examples of energetic clutter. But, as you mentioned, thoughts, before we create something, it begins with a thought, and that's energy as well. So really monitoring your thoughts. Are you in the present? Are you in the past? Or are you in the future? I used to think, I'm a pretty positive person. And then I started to monitor my thoughts. And I thought, wow, you got some negativity going on there. But I became aware, and awareness is half the battle. Once you have your awareness, then you can do something to change it.
You mentioned the key word, awareness, and being mindful, because as you mentioned, there are times where even I come across where people keep on claiming that I'm being positive, I'm doing the right thing, but the words aren't resonating with their energy. It says both of them are at odds, and that's where they need to align, hopefully over time. Now, through your work, you talk about being a CPO of your life, the Chief Possibility Officer. So would you like to share a little bit about that?
Sure, because I want you to ask what else is possible. Dream big. Don't limit yourself. We are limitless beings. We, as humans, put limits on ourselves, and we create our reality. If you're in that victim energy, you think life happens to you. That's not reality. You create it. So I want you to become in charge and see you to be your chief possibility officer, because everything's possible. You think it, you can create it. And I think that it's really important to be proactive. Be responsible, take ownership of that, and create what you choose. Don't sit back and let life happen to you passively. I think a lot of people just let life happen to them. They aren't aware. They're just kind of getting by in life, and they're really unhappy. And again, I say this with love. I don't say it with judgment. I say this because if someone listening has that aha moment, that would just thrill me. Possibilities of your life.
Absolutely. Being a coach yourself, there are times where I come across clients, or prospective clients, I should be clearer, and they think that because they hire a coach, or let's say even a professional organizer and a coach like yourself, they think that just because they pay you, they're outsourcing their life for you to fix, but they're not going to engage themselves to learn how to maintain the new reawakening.
You are 1,000%. Yeah, no, I think I'm so excited that you brought up this point, because I think it's so essential. First of all, I want to say that I work with a coach every month, because I have to be the best version of me, and I need to know, how can I be a better Julie? What do I need to do? And not only does she help me become a better person, but she offers me a different perspective. And so, we'll talk about things from an energetic perspective. She said, this client was trying to avoid something with you, and I didn't realize it. So just so people know, I'm constantly working on myself. Here's a great example. I was working with a client, and she was in her 60s, and she lost her husband and became a widow when she was in her 20s and had a few small children. And I learned in the time working with her that you name it, she had tried it, meaning different modalities of healing. But what I discovered was, and it was interesting, and I discovered this through helping her clear clutter, like she could only go so far. And so when it got too painful or it got too much, then she'd try the next best thing. And so she wasn't able to do the deeper work. Again, there's no judgment on that. I believe we're all coming back again and again and again. So we'll just keep being, trying to be the best that we can be. And so, so I see that. And so eventually, our work had to stop because I couldn't support her. I've also seen people who will work with me and then not do the work and then not wonder when, that their life doesn't change. And with coaching clients, and again, this was a learning experience for me, I now up front is, if you don't do your homework, your life's not going to change. And so I've seen that a little bit. And the other thing, and I don't know if you've seen this, is they want me to be the magic bullet, meaning one session, everything's going to be groovy. And it doesn't work that way. You have to do the work. Again, you know what's best. You have that inner guidance, and I'm there to support you with that. But if you don't take the next steps, you don't take action, then your life's not going to change.
Oh my, if I got paid a penny for every time I met people that who thought that way. They want to come in and they think it's a one-session deal. Now, it's up to them to try out the professional and all, but they need to have a realistic approach that it took time for them to reach the point where they need a little bit of assistance to either improve a part of their life or they want to acquire some new skill. That just as it takes time to get to that point where you reach out to somebody, it also takes time to work with that individual and then move on if you reach your goal. But sometimes people, they think emotionally they're ready to make that change, but when it comes to action, they freeze.
I absolutely do. And again, it's very important to me. I check in. Am I able to support this person? Because if I'm not, then I would like to try to refer them to someone else. But I've learned, just to be very clear up front, you need to do the work. And I would say 95% of people do. And the 5% that don't, that's okay. And hopefully they can find someone that can light that spark with them. But like the one client I mentioned earlier, I've seen more than one person who's just afraid. They can't dig deeper. It's just too painful. And so maybe that's not going to happen for them in this lifetime.
And that is one of those few situations where I've even encountered where I realized that when they're truly ready, they'll be able to break through that threshold. But no one could make you do something that you're not ready to. And especially when it comes to emotional stuff, I tell the prospective clients that when you're ready, that's when things are going to move faster. But if you're going to resist while going through the action, it's just not doing it in the first place.
Yeah. What you resist persists. Absolutely.
Having you share some of these experiences, have you worked with people with small businesses, or do you work with individuals? Do you go in corporate environments? Do you work in teams? I'm a little bit curious because your work is so inspirational in a sense that not only one person needs help, there are people that come in groups.
Well, thank you. I do work with small businesses. I work with individuals. I have worked in a corporate environment where I've gone in and shut the door and worked with the individual. Like they needed help at work, but didn't want people to know. So I would say that a very corporate environment is if it's kind of behind the closed door and I'm working with a client, but they might not want to be quote unquote out with it. I am actually working on something for small business owners because I am an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, and one of the things like I want to address things that have happened in my life, like how do you say no to a client? And knowing, when I first started my business, I'll never forget, someone wanted me to drive 90 minutes away and for someone and hardly pay any money. And I didn't have any clients. And I said no, because I knew, that was setting a boundary. That was saying I am worthy. What I do has worth. And I'm going to say no. And saying no for me was, again, being worthy, owning that and trusting that the clients would come. Because a lot of times, especially, I don't know if you ran into this when you first started your business or working with people, everyone wants to barter, or, how do you handle when people were like, gosh, you're really expensive? Well, that's something that, especially if as entrepreneurs or small business owners, we're sensitive, or we have the spiritual side. I think there is a tendency to want to give and not take care of ourselves. So I think that that's something that's really important as well, and that we need to remember as small business owners. So yes, I do work with all types. I love it. When I see that aha moment from people, or I see a connection, or I get an email saying, oh my gosh, my relationship with my husband has improved because we cleared the dining room and we can eat dinner and he's happy now. That's what it's like, yes.
Small things go a long way. And for example, in my own line of work, while I'm working with people, I also find it therapeutic in some ways where I learn things about myself. Do you find your own work to be therapeutic in the sense that where you have those epiphanies in your own life?
Oh, most definitely. Really, I learn from everyone or anyone that I work with, because I believe we're mirrors for each other. And so whatever is coming up for someone, you match that, I believe, at some level. And so it just gives me an opportunity to say, okay, what is it that's still in me that's related to this that can be healed? I so believe in being aware. And I'm not aware 100% of the time, and I'm not perfect. But because I do it enough, because I am choosing to be better, I'm more likely to not miss stuff. And, one thing I've been working on is victim energy. Like, for the love of God, how much victim energy can one person have? Because it's something that I've been working on. But now it's like the subtleness. Where do I feel like a victim? But again, I'm in gratitude for that, because I'm like, okay, if I can recognize it, I can release it and let it go, and I can become aware, and then I'm done with it. And then we'll get to a deeper level to release that. And so I believe that all my clients are gifts for me, because not only do I learn about myself, I learn how to be a better person. I learn how to be a better coach. I learn how to be a better organizer. I learn from everyone. And, one of the things that I love is, I mentioned earlier, checking, okay, is this someone that I am able to support? Am I a good match? Can I help them? And I like everyone I work with. And if I'm not a good match, or I don't think it's a good personality fit, I can say no. And that's a gift, because I want to enjoy people I work with. And, before, every time when I had just a regular 9-to-5 job, I didn't get to choose who I could work with. And I, worked with some really challenging people, and I don't have to deal with that now.
Surrounded by clutter, tired of the stress it creates, ready to find peace of mind and reduce your anxiety? Our comprehensive How to Declutter Your Life course guides you step by step in how to clear clutter and simplify your life. Each section is 3 months: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and features manageable to-dos. A bonus month on clearing energetic clutter is also included. Choose either workbook or video course. How to Declutter Your Life is designed to build a strong foundation for releasing clutter and continued personal growth. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
That's a good point you point out, that when we work for ourselves, we have more the luxury of being picky, but for valid reasons. We don't need to invite random energy into our own path.
Yes.
Now, you alluded to letting go, and letting go is something that people hear often. Either they roll their eyes because they think, oh, easier said than done. What are some ways that you incorporate the idea of letting go, which has helped you and could possibly help the rest of us in the audience?
Great question. I like to sing that. My nieces like that Frozen thing, although I think probably most parents out there would scream, so I won't sing Let It Go. I believe being in the present moment really helps you, because if you're ruminating on the past, you haven't let it go. If you're ruminating on the future, or you're anxious about something, you haven't let go of worry. So I think that being present is really powerful. I am a huge fan of gratitude and having a daily gratitude practice. I actually, on my personal Facebook page, which is public, I am doing every day this year a daily gratitude. And today it was like, I'm grateful that I got 2 naps yesterday. I've been exhausted. I was able to hang out and nap. When you can't have two thoughts going on at the same time. So if you're having trouble letting go, come into gratitude. I don't want to let this go. I spent so much money on it. Okay, come into gratitude. Okay, I'm grateful that I had the money to spend on that. And so I think a regular gratitude practice helps you let go of all your clutter in any form. So I think that that's really important. I would say if we're working on releasing a physical item, I'd ask you, what's it costing you? Is it preventing you from taking a class because you have so much stuff in your space? Is it preventing you from starting a new relationship? I've had clients who've been too embarrassed to have anyone over to their home, so their relationships have suffered. So what is it preventing you? If you're having trouble letting go, again, of a physical thing, then I would say, who could get better use out of that? And, when we do things, when I give, I get more benefit than the recipient because I feel great. I'm like, oh, I'm doing something that's supporting someone else, and I feel fantastic. So those are a couple things. I'm a huge fan, besides of meditating, because, that calms our mind. That allows us to get clarity. Breathing. If you're having trouble letting go, start to breathe. Just in and out, calming down. Once you do that, I found when you're really centered and listening to your internal wisdom, I believe it's easier for you to let things go. And if you can't, here's an example. I was really angry with someone for quite some time. And I was like, why am I so angry at this person? I mean, like, and I couldn't let it go. And it went on way too long. And so, as I've mentioned, I like to dig deeper. So with the help of my coach and things that she had taught me, I finally was like, oh, I know I can't let go of this anger, because if I focus my anger against this person, then I'm not going to have to look at something I'm hurt and sad about, because I'm afraid to go there. And once I was able to acknowledge that, then I could release the anger.
Very deep. Because as you mentioned, you work with coach. There are a lot of us professionals that seek inspiration from mentors and other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier when you mentioned of when you're new to the market and people want you to go, forming boundaries, and at first people start questioning you of, well, how can you charge this much? Shouldn't you be giving it away a little bit more complimentary? You face all types of personalities. But at the same time, when we're outside of our comfort zone, it also reaffirms and lets us know that we're on the right path in our mission. And I admire how you stay so true to your mission by having all of these standards and boundaries, because I've also had to refine them over time, and I've learned that's an ongoing process. It's not as, okay, once we define them, it will work out for the rest of time, because, of course, as you know, over time we meet all types of people, and then they inspire us to come up with new rules for our own work.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And, again, life is a process, so you learn more. It's like as things go along, okay, I need to add that, or I need to incorporate that, and it's just as long as you continue to learn, you'll be able to pass that along to their clients. But it's remembering, like, okay, why did I start this business in the first place? Well, I want to support people. Yes, you are worthy. Yes, you are good enough. Does that mean I'm going to make mistakes? Absolutely. But you learn from that, you're honest, and you move on. And I believe it's not making a mistake if you learn something.
Of course. There's always going to be something new that we learn. And that's one of the things that I remind my clients. And as you mentioned earlier, when you share your insights with your clients, that I tell them I'm human first, and then I am the professional, whether I'm a coach or however I'm working with them. Because sometimes when people may approach us, they kind of view us to be superhuman, and they forget to have realistic expectations. So what do you do within your power to maintain those realistic expectations while encouraging them to have high expectations from life, as long as they work at it?
Well, I think that it's just step by step. And, the example I use, so I had to have unexpected surgery this past fall. And I'm here in my office as I speak with you, and so we have a game table. And that became a dumping ground. But I'm like, you know what? When I'm fully recovered in 6 weeks, I'll get to it. So the point is that I'm not perfect, that it's okay if you have to take a break or you can't do something, but you make the promise and you commit to get back to doing it. So hopefully I'm going to be clearing out all of my clutter my entire life. The example I just mentioned momentarily, here I am. I mean, I do a lot of practice. I take classes, and I was angry at someone for a year and had to figure out, okay, this is what it's about. This is what's going on. And so, start small, but if you take that first step, then you can build on that first step. And, not to forget to have fun along the way. We don't always have to be these serious students and always working to be perfect and always blah, blah, blah. Life's not about that. We're about having joy and experiencing pleasure and enjoying that. And so just remembering that too, have fun with it and taking that first step and knowing, okay, as long as I'm doing something, then it's going to be okay. And again, the more that you do something, the more strong you become. I mentioned feeling like a victim. Because I've become so aware of that, I can spot it more easily. Or when it becomes more subtle, that's what that is. But then I can release it and move forward.
Being self-aware really helps us in our path. With all of the clutter, we focused on things and ideas and mindset. Excuse me. I was wondering if you worked with clients where you made them aware that there are clutter in the form of people who are energy vampires. What have they done about that?
Oh gosh, yes. I'm so glad that you brought that up. I created a How to Declutter Your Life course, and one of the modules is examining your relationship. So, energy vampires are a great example, but it could also be. Here's an example of someone I had in my life. And I got married later in life. It'll be 3 years this fall. And so when I posted on Facebook, it was one of those things, we got married 11 months from our first date. We just knew pretty quickly on that this was it. And so I had a friend. I'd been friends with her since junior high. And the only person who wrote something negative when I announced my engagement, I'm like, I'm done. And I didn't make a big scene about it. But I thought, you know what? This has been going on for 30 years, being jealous or whatever it is, and I'm finished. So people who are jealous or like that make unkind comments when you are celebrating something, or people who never support you or always taking from you or never giving. And you mentioned energy vampires. So, they've done studies that you become like the people you're hanging out with. If you hang out with a lot of people that are overweight, you're most likely going to become overweight. If you hang out with people who are negative all the time, you're most likely going to become negative. So I think it's very important to be very aware of who is in your life, especially those that are closest to you. And I just was interviewed about on a podcast about how you can bring in clutter with your intimate relationships. And so I think absolutely, I'm so thrilled that you brought that up, because they create not great relationships can create clutter for us in many ways.
That tied into one of the ideas I wanted to discuss, how a person could be physically decluttered, mentally, partially emotionally, but not, a person may not show the signs that they live a cluttered life, but maybe their relationships are so cluttering that they need to clean out that baggage.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you don't think you have worth, then you're probably going to attract people who agree with you in your relationships, and then you're going to be in very unloving, unhealthy relationships. And, it's interesting. One of the things I observed a lot of relationships, because I didn't find my husband until later in life, and kind of learned what not to do and what was okay. And, I'm observing a relationship now of someone I know, and I'm thinking, probably most people would say it's healthy, but from my observation, it's not. Like, you had all these activities and you meet your boyfriend and you quit everything. I don't personally think that's healthy. And so, again, like if you're kind of on the outside, most people say, this is a healthy relationship. But one, I should say, you obviously never know truly what's going on in a relationship if you're not in it. But that to me is an example of an unhealthy relationship. And even if you have your act together, quote unquote, in other areas of your life, it doesn't mean you're going to have healthy relationships.
Being a devil's advocate, if a woman says, well, I love him, so I don't regret putting my career, my interests, my friendships, my relationships on the side, how would you respond? I'm not going to say, how are you going to talk sense into her?
I would say, you know what? It's your choice. Again, like I don't see my job. My job's not to tell you that I'm right and you're wrong. I don't believe in that. Again, you have your own inner wisdom. I then am not the person for you to have that aha moment. And again, you might not have that aha moment at all in this lifetime. And so I would just say you have to do what you feel is best for you. At the beginning, if it was an abusive relationship or something caused me concern, then I would probably end working with the client, because that would be very difficult for me to see. I don't feel like I would be able to support them, and then I don't think that would be fair to them, and it wouldn't be fair to me as well. And then I would have suggestions, here are some other people that might be a better fit to you to work with, because I'm very passionate about being green, but I don't force people to do that. Again, my kind of take this to the perspective, okay, here's information. I'm going to share with you what I know, and maybe you get something now, and maybe it plants a seed, and 3 years down the road you get it. I don't think if forcing people, that's just never going to work. Most people rebel against that. And I had a client recently who, and this is what led me to say, okay, if you don't have the homework, you're not going to see any change. They're like, well, my family said they haven't seen much change. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. And then, I was like, okay, well, here are, the 10 weeks of homework. And if you go back and do that, then I believe you're going to see change. But if you don't do your homework, then your life's not going to change. So again, I'd say to that person, you absolutely have to do what's right and what you feel is good. That goes back to, I can't change someone. I can't save them. They have their own path and their own life lessons to learn. And again, I say this with love. I don't say it with judgment. I feel that I ask to have people that I can support come to me. I check in with guidance about that. And then I trust that. I trust that process.
I love that you trust your judgment and you look within before proceeding forward, because you mentioned one of the things that goes for most ethical coaches, that when clients approach us, we're not there to tell them what decision to make and how they should live their life, but we're there to give them the tools and make them aware of what are the possibilities within their life and what paths that they could entertain. That at times, even I meet people who do not want to take accountability, but they just want someone to throw a dart at and say, oh, maybe if Sasha takes me, Sasha could tell me to do this, and then I can blame it on Sasha. And there's all different types of mindsets out there. Now, speaking of lessons, I love how you mentioned that maybe it's not this lifetime for that individual to learn their lesson, because there are so many people out there who might live their life out of controlling another person, hoping that they will wake up one day and see the light, whether it's a parent, a loved one, or just people who love to control other people, but they don't want to work on their own lives.
Yes.
And you just shine the light on the reality. It might not be this lifetime where that individual may wake up.
Right. And you have to accept that. And, I'm thinking of someone that is in my family, and I had to get to the point like, you know what, I can't live their life. I can't change them. And that's okay. I can love them, though. I can love them fiercely. And if they come and, hey, I need some help or advice, then I'm there. But otherwise, I can't control it. I can't make them change. I can't make them want to, quote unquote, be better. They have to come to the decision to do that. And again, it's okay. It really is okay. Because you know what? I have enough stuff to work on to keep me busy for several lifetimes.
I think you won't be the only one. I'll join you on that.
Surrounded by clutter, tired of the stress it creates, ready to find peace of mind and reduce your anxiety? Our comprehensive How to Declutter Your Life course guides you step by step in how to clear clutter and simplify your life. Each section is 3 months: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and features manageable to dos. A bonus month on clearing energetic clutter is also included. Choose either workbook or video course. How to Declutter Your Life is designed to build a strong foundation for releasing clutter and continued personal growth. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
You mentioned about, and it resonates with the messages that you shared earlier, that when people are so fixated on fixing their physical reality, it's just as important to do the inner work, because if you don't do the inner work, the physical reality starts going back and retrogressing to whichever clutter they were collecting.
It absolutely does. And so that's why I think I'm a little unique, because professional organizers tend to just really focus on the physical. A couple people also had the mental, but I had the emotional, spiritual, and energetic, because I want to tackle it at all levels. I want to see change. I want to see people rocking and doing their thing and shining their light and making the world brighter. And so I think it's really important to recognize that you have to do the inner work. And, one of the things I do with clients when we finish on a physical organizing job or on a life coaching job is kind of a clutter control plan. And working with people, I get a sense of, here's where you're challenged. So you want to make sure that in the future you're paying attention to this, or we have a game plan for that, and so that you keep doing the work. And because if not, I tell everyone that it's going to go, like you mentioned, it's going to go back to the way it was, and we don't want that. We want to keep moving forward.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. How do you ensure that these clients can maintain what they have learned and they will practice it in their days going on forward?
Yeah, so really for what I do is what I call a clutter control plan. Because again, once I've worked with someone, I can see where they're challenged and say, okay, here are the things, you still maybe you need to complete this on your own. This is what you need to do in the future. And, it takes into account all that. So something that might be on a clutter control plan could be mundane as, clear out your linen closet, but it also can be, okay, we're going to start out with 5 minutes of breathing a day. We're going to research a meditation practice and start to find one that we like. We're going to come up for a plan when we see our mother-in-law who drives us nuts, and how are we going to, instead of lashing out at her, getting really angry or upset at ourselves, what's our game plan for that emotion? Or if we become jealous of someone, or what are we going to do if we start to compare ourselves to our sister and say, okay, whoa, let's stop the bus and let's do some self-examination. And, if the energy in our rooms feel yucky, how are we going to clear that energetic clutter? So it's really coming up with the game plan. Again, the person has to continue to do the work, and, life happens. Like I mentioned a client earlier who just kind of became overwhelmed with life, and that's okay. So we get back up on the horse and we do it and we move forward. We don't spend the time in the past beating ourselves up. When I was working with a family at the end of January, I laid down some ground rules and I said, okay, no shaming, no blaming. We're not going to talk about what happened in the past, who did what. We're a team. We're here to support each other. Let's stay focused. Let's say, okay, we are a family unit. How are we going to help everyone be the best that they can be?
I like how you have people omit the idea of blaming, because the moment people start thinking of blaming, they start thinking of a person or event, and they fixate so much that they don't see what is in front of them. And blaming may not exactly be an emotion, also an action. I like that, no blaming, no shaming. Now, as we start to wrap things up, Julie, if you can kindly share with all of us, what is the best professional guidance that you have received?
Oh, wonderful question. Wow, the best professional guidance that I received. I'm thinking of my coach that I'm working with now, because I know what I'm going to share with you. I'm excited. Get out of my head and into my body. And because my gut, my intuition is in my body, it's not in my head. And, the ego has a job to do. And I don't want to label the ego's job as being bad. Excuse me. But the ego says, you're never going to clear that clutter. You're never going to be worthy. You're never going to be good enough. That's all junky junk coming from the ego. And so getting out of the head and in the body. Okay, breathe deep. Okay, what's my heart feel? Oh, my heart says I'm worthy. My heart says I'm good enough. So getting out of our mind and into our body. That's what I'm going to give for the best advice I've had. I'll say recently, because I've gotten some awesome advice through the years.
Oh, yes. And one piece of advice for people so they could live their life mindfully.
Oh, that I would offer?
Yes.
Okay, that they can live up, be in gratitude. I think that love and gratitude are the highest vibrations. And when you're in that, you're going to attract what you're trying to create. And again, don't be like, oh, I can't be in gratitude. That's okay. And within that gratitude, can you find, or if you can't find gratitude for the day, can you feel like, okay, I'm grateful that I can breathe today. I'm grateful that I have a meal to eat. And again, that's okay. Like, don't judge yourself that, if you are at the beginning of finding gratitude, it's A-okay. But are you going to take that step forward? Are you going to do that? Because you have the choice, and doing nothing is still a choice. So I'm going to say, start with gratitude, because when you're in gratitude, you can raise your vibration.
Takeaways from today's podcast. Children can benefit from learning how to clear clutter and get organized early on. If they don't build skills early in life, it will affect them in adulthood, and they will likely be challenged with clutter. Once you begin clearing clutter, it becomes easier. Like anything, you can build your decluttering muscle. Understand that it takes time to clear your clutter. It won't be gone in an hour. You know what is best for you. Trust your inner wisdom. If you need help, find someone who supports you and your ideas and doesn't assume they know what is best for you or that their way is the only way. Listen to your inner voice.
Everyone, you can reach Julie at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. And I do want to thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom, because clutter is one of my favorite topics. And I was really happy that somebody else other than myself could talk about it.
Well, thank you. I had fun.
And it's a lot of great education, but also it's always great to remind people that it's not only about the things that you hold on to, but it's also in your heart and your mind. And it's important to let go of it when the time comes. So, again, I want to thank Julie in the audience for joining me. Please write to her and visit her site at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. And until next time,
go out, clear the clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire.
Ready to clear clutter and share your gifts with the world? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So what step will you take today? Sign up for our newsletter and receive a free copy of our 10 Steps to Clearing Clutter. Julie Coraccio provides coaching, professional organizing and speaking, organizing classes, positive affirmations, and her unique How to Declutter Your Life course. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. Subscribe to Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out and join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m.